Hello, my name is Rick Loring from LMGI. Thank you for attending the Solid Edge 2020 Lunch and Learn sessions. Before we get started, I wanted to point out that panel for the GoToWebinar on the right part of your screen has a orange button. You can shrink that control panel. You can also ask questions, post those that we can address at the end of the session. The Solid Edge 2020 portfolio continues to grow. There are a number of new add-ons to Solid Edge that are supported with Solid Edge 2020. Each version of Solid Edge that gets released seems to have more and more portfolio components added to it. Today's topic, though, we're going to look at 3D translation and migration. There are some awesome tools in here that make your job a lot easier when dealing with foreign and translated data. We've always been able to open a number of file types in Solid Edge. Besides, of course, the stock Solid Edge file types, we can open Parasolid, JT, NX, CATIA, AutoCAD. The list is pretty extended. Not only can you open these files, but you can actually make edits. So taking a quick look at Solid Edge, if I open, let's say, I'll change my filter here to a step document. You can open up a step document. You can get tons of these files off the internet, anywhere, whether it's hardware you're using or fixtures or that type of thing. You can open these up and use them in your drawings, use them in assemblies, etc. Something pretty useful with Solid Edge. Once you open up a model, not only can you see and use the model, but you can actually make edits to it. In this case here, I'll just grab one of the surfaces on the model. I can type in a new number, or I can actually just roll my roller ball and make an edit on the part. Conversely, let's do a Control T for a top view. And with my mouse, I'm just going to select a couple items here. And by tapping the delete key, I can actually edit that or just delete components. That's very useful to be able to defeature items that you're going to use in your models at another time. So this holds true, by the way, for IGES files, SAT, CATIA, Pro-E, SolidWorks, AutoCAD, any of these file types, you can open and edit them. So let's see here. Next. Actually, this is pretty profound. You can even open and edit STL files. We're going to have a whole session on this. This is in the forward and reverse engineering session, where we take scan data, recognize features in the scan data, or just use it as it sits and make edits to it and place it into an assembly. So here we're just taking a scan file, recognizing the center of where cylinders would be, and doing some actual modeled cylinders on an STL file. I find that pretty fascinating, actually. So migration, the word migration is altogether different than just file open. We've had file open for all those file types I've showed you for quite some time, but a migration tool is different. This is a tool that lets you, and these are delivered with Solid Edge. These aren't add-ons, these are just stock. There's an Inventor Migrator, Creo, and SolidWorks. And what is different about these is it will convert the parts, the assemblies, the drawings, and it will make the drawings associative to the models. And the models themselves will have features in them, collection of faces as features, and holes, patterns, and you could edit anything in them. So here's an example. There's a particular SolidWorks drawing that can get converted to a Solid Edge drawing. Now this was ported back all the way back to Solid Edge ST8 with Service Pack 4, but we've had this for some time, and each release of Solid Edge, it seems to get better and better. There are many different file types that are supported. or excuse me, view types. You get your detail views and the view position, the scale, the hidden edge, a number of these. There are the multi-body. There are some issues, or there were some issues with multi-body parts, because in SolidWorks in particular, you can have a number of different styles of parts. Even in Solid Edge, you can have a multi-body part. They did find a way to address this, where the multi-body part looks one way in SolidWorks, and it would just bring all the parts in at once. Now we can know which body to show in Solid Edge. So here's the Inventor migration tool. And this again, now each of these, I should mention, to get the full associativity of the drawings to the model and the make conditions in the assemblies, you need to have the native system somewhere on your network or on your computer. And it uses the API inside of the other CAD system to help generate these drawings. So the other system must be on the same system as the Solid Edge is, and that helps with the conversion. So there's actually another file type. I forgot to mention this. With STL, we can also read OBJ files. Those are object files that are faceted, or what we call files as a bag of triangles, and these are very, very complicated files where there's no solid model data in there. It's just OBJ files. We now support those, import and export. There is another file export. I thought this might be on topic since we are talking about importing and exporting data. There is, when you save a step file, something that's been added in the step AP 242 standard is the ability to put PMI data out. Product manufacturing information data can now go out into the step file. Let's take a look at a couple of these just as examples. This is a session of SolidWorks running. This is an assembly that is from SolidWorks. And in here, you can see the entire feature tree. Any one of these parts, you can see down in the tree, this was natively modeled in SolidWorks. There are some configurations in here. For instance, full stroke configuration modifies the model back to the default list. There are a ton of the mates and aligns and all of those that are in this model. There's actually the drawing of the model here is we have a parts list, bill of material. They even separate the assembly steps. There's a drawing of that shows step 1, step 2, step 3. I want to point that out because this is a native SolidWorks part file here. So let's take a look. So what happens when we run this migrator? Let's see if I can start this in here, Solid Edge. I'll start the SolidWorks data migration. This is that tool I showed a few slides ago, and I can browse to where the SolidWorks data is. It's in this assembly here. I'll select that folder. I can browse to where I want my files to land. And in this case, I want them to land in, let's say, a new folder, SE files. All right, let's select that, select the folder, and when I select next, here's all the files that are sitting in that folder. Now, interestingly, you can just batch these and hit add all and just let it rip, and it will grind away and convert all those files. But I've had pretty good luck doing this with just selecting a single drawing. So if there's a single assembly or a single drawing like this assembly steps and hit add, that actually converts that drawing and drags all the parts with it and creates those in Solid Edge. So I'm gonna hit cancel here and just show you the results. This does take a little bit to run. That would be kind of boring watching that happen on this session. But this does make a pretty verbose list of what got migrated, and we'll take a peek on how that looks. So we'll open up a converted assembly from SolidWorks. Here's the same assembly we saw a little bit ago. In here, there are a whole variety of mates and conditions that came across from the model. There are, if I go to the alternate assemblies, in the alternate assemblies page comes up, we can look at, let's say I modify this to be the full stroke. It takes the configurations and it modifies those. We can open a drawing with that. I probably should have opened the drawing first. Let's say we'll go into here and look at our, our drawing files, and we'll look at the draft document. And draft document, a couple drawings out of date, date those. And these are actually a connection to the assembly. These assembly steps are even isolated. We can look at, there were some other drawings that were inside that SolidWorks folder. I think one of those was a motor bracket, and open up the motor bracket drawing and take a look at this. Looks like the same one. And by double clicking any of the views that you would in regular Solid Edge, it opens up the actual part file. And any edits on here let's just change that a little bit, make that a little wider. I have symmetry turned on. Here's some tapped holes. It found some holes in there and it patterned these. It actually found some of the features. It took features in the SolidWorks file and put them in Solid Edge file. And I should clarify, if you use Solid Edge Synchronous, it doesn't really have features per se. Any given feature is just a collection of faces. So we can grab those, we can edit them, delete them, change their sizes, change their shape. If I go back to the motor bracket here, because I made that a little bit wider, I can update the views, and this goes through and tells me which items, which dimensions got changed, what they used to be, what they are now. I can clear these and just answer close. And here's our drawing up to date. There were some other drawings in there. Let's take a look in back here in SolidWorks. I had a couple other files that were of some interest. There was a mold component here. It was just a mold carrier. So if I opened up that drawing of a carrier part in SolidWorks, I just wanted something that had a little bit of complexity here to it, with some details and a section just to illustrate this tool. And so if I were to select this part on the drawing and open up in the part model, there's the two components in here. So I'll shrink this down and open this up in SolidWorks. This was in the carrier, and this translated pretty well. And what I thought was cool about this, even though there's quite a few faces and such, if I double click that, it brings me into the part modeling. And in the part model, again, like we had before, there are a number of pattern features in here. If I do a Control F, and let's say we just, like I did with the knobby, just select a few components there and hit delete. This goes through and makes an edit on the model. Let's try that again. Looks like I got a little bit too much geometry at the time. I don't want to delete some of these. Just wanted to see if we can get those two ears out of there. So delete that or make changes to any of the items, any of the other features in the model. All right, let's see in here. That's just a very quick overview of some of the changes, some of the migration tool, the open the edit that we can do with SolidWorks, Inventor, Creo. I'd encourage you to generate some questions and ask if your files can be translated or anything, and we'd be happy to take a look. Thank you very much for your time. This concludes this session.